The Vanguard. It is easily one of the best classes in the game with tons of synergy across all of its perks. And in this video today, we're going to go through my breakdown of each one of the perks across the entire leveling process from 1 all the way to 25. And then we're going to jump into a discussion about each of the individual weapons for the Vanguard and then close the video out talking about my gameplay as well as some core lessons to know while you're playing it. But if this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by uploading the knowledge of my video. So if all you wanted to know was just simply what the perk selections were for the Vanguard, here they are right here. There are some that are kind of a little more dealer's choice depending on your weapon. I only play with the bolt weapons. I don't like playing with the Melta weapon. So you could swap off these two depending on if you're playing with a bolt or a Melta weapon. Or maybe if you're playing with a ranged heavy team, tip of the spear is probably better. Whatever kind of situation suits yours, your team play and your style, whatever works best for you. But this is what works for me. So if this is all you wanted to know, please feel free to simply shut the video down and get back to enjoying Space Marine 2. And if you found this video helpful and you are heading out, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, because each one of those things helps me out in a huge way. You can find a link below to my Twitch where I stream this game and many others Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday every week. Well, let's get started here on my ultimate guide to the Vanguard in Space Marine 2. Starting off, let's look at the first 8 levels of Vanguard. And we're going to look initially at the class perk of the Grapnel Launcher. You're going to launch into things, propel towards them, and then do a big diving kick like you are Chuck Norris. And our starting perk is Contested Health, which regenerates 50% faster. It's very nice here because it also couples very well with the new med pack that will also recover your contested health. It feels like you're honestly cheating when you play this character at max level. So let's take a look at our first perk, Moving Target. Each melee attack you land reduces the range damage you take by 1% up to 15%. This is really good, and it's your level 1 perk. Go ahead and take it. It's going to be very beneficial, especially as you scale into harder difficulties, but we will eventually move away from this perk, but it's still a good one. Now, our level 2 perk is Duelist. Perfect parry windows increased by 50%. What is really nice about this is patch 3.0 reduced your perfect parry window by 33% because of a little bit of a nerf towards fencing weapons. This recovers that 33% lost and gives you, 17% extra? So you actually have really good perfect parry window on even a balanced weapon. So the nice thing about this is it unlocks a little bit more melee weapon choices where otherwise you might be strictly stuck with fencing weapons because maybe you're just not that great with the parrying window or whatever it is, or it just is so forgiving with fencing weapons. This makes it so balanced because it's actually going to perform on that level. We're never going to move away from Duelist. It's going to be our core perk for the core section of the Vanguard. Into level 3, we'll have Retribution. After you are grabbed or knocked back, you deal 20% more melee damage for 10 seconds. Another good one. You can skip it if you want, but it's just a solid one to have. What you're going to notice with Vanguard is you actually have a lot of options. Most classes, they kind of have perks you can completely skip over entirely and never touch them and be totally fine. Or you've got perks that just don't really play very well. There's not a lot of synergy. I said this many times in many of my videos. Vanguard feels like the class that they made last across all 6 because it feels the one that is most complete. It feels the one that has the most synergy across all the perks, and we're going to see that here today. Our first team perk here is Melee Champion. All squad members deal 15% more damage. Might as well get it. It's the best one next to the last one, which is Inner Fire. And it's a great way to help out any melee-centric team. So if you're playing with Bulwark, if you're playing with a Assault, even another Tactical, it's going to be advantageous just to get a little bit more melee damage on board. Restless Fortitude. After a diving kick, you take 10% less range damage for 10 seconds. You could skip this one and be totally fine. 10% less range damage isn't that significant, especially with the way patch 3.0 changed the way that melee range damage changed how much range damage affects you when you're in melee. So this isn't a huge one. If you're really low on requisition, this is your first character, go ahead and skip this one. You're not going to feel it. Zone of Impact is the one that I stay with my Vanguard unless I'm playing with a Melta, in which case I take the bottom one, but performing a finisher with the Grapnel Launcher deals a small amount of damage to nearby enemies, so this allows you to get a lot of benefit out of the first signature ability to kind of create a little explosion. I like this a lot. So performing a finisher with the Grapnel Launcher means that they are in execute and you press the Grapnel Launcher and you'll basically execute them. I don't know why it says performing a finisher with the Grapnel Launcher, because you can't gun strike with it. You can only execute. So it's a kind of a confusing nomenclature that when we jump to the signature, you'll see it just says execute, but it just means execute. Next up here is the thrill of the fight. After a perfectly timed parry or dodge, you take 15% less health damage for 3 seconds. It's actually quite good. Why not take it? You're going to just be marching this one down anyway, but it's a good one to have in the meantime. Now for our first signature, performing a finisher with the grapnel launcher restores its charge. So you do these two together. I thought it said execute. I don't know why. My brain is not good. You'll have these two together, a lot of synergy. So now you're going to do a small AoE burst, and you're going to restore your grapnel launcher. You'll be at level 8 by this point. You're going to feel a pretty good power spike when you get those two on board. Let's jump over to 9 to the next 8 levels. So 9 to 17 gives us Melee Mastery. Melee damage increased by 10% against Majoris level and higher. This one's actually quite good. You compare it to this, right? This is a reduction in the amount of damage you're taking from range. I think that, honestly, we go with the Melee Mastery here because of that 3.0 patch that does change the amount of damage that we take from range while being in melee. We might as well just get additional melee damage, especially against Majoris, which are the spooky, scary ones to kill anyway. Our next perk here is Close Combat Focus. I'll never take it because the perfect parry window increase is just that much better. After that, Consecutive Execution. Killing 10 enemies in rapid succession restores equipment charge by 1. Cooldown is 180 seconds. So we have a 3-minute cooldown on a perk that gives you 1 equipment charge back. I never choose equipment charges, but if you are playing with a Melta, I can see the validity of wanting to use this and I can see the value of it. It's a personal preference. I don't like having another crack or another Melta bomb every 3 minutes, assuming I've got them. The map spawns enough equipment that I don't really feel this, versus I'd rather just have an increase in my melee damage. And I'm going to ditch both of these perks anyway for the last one, so I would skip Consecutive Execution. I actually only bought it for this video. Unmatched Zeal. Melee finisher of extremist level enemies additionally restores a small amount of health for any squad member. It's cool, but I'd rather just have more damage because extremist level, I'm not going to deal with that very often. So I'm not going to invest into this. Our next one here is Shockwave. Diving Kick additionally deals damage in a 5-meter radius. We're switching to this one because now, let's kind of go through this. Diving Kick will do an immediate burst of damage. But when I do Zone of Impact and this, I'm going to get a Restore on our charge if it's a finisher, and I'm going to do more AoE damage if it's a finisher. So these two work in conjunction very well, but the nice thing about Shockwave is it doesn't need to be a finisher to trigger it, and it's going to knock things and stagger them away, so you actually have the capability to get some breathing room to continue attacking, to get out of the situation, to shoot things, whatever you want to do. And also, it will knock out anything that wants to call for reinforcements. It's a huge boon. I don't ever touch anything else other than Shockwave. It's great. Next up is Tenacity. After killing 10 enemies in rapid succession, Diving Kicks damage is increased by 25% for 10 seconds. Cooldown is 30 seconds. Honestly, everything in this column is really good. If you're using a Melta, this is awesome. You use a Melta, you kill 10 Gaunts, then you use a Tenacity to Diving Kick into something. So if you find the validity of using this, you find it really good for your build, please, by all means, try it out. I always use my videos and guides as a means of giving you direction in your builds rather than a creed in a way that it should be only ever used. Try out Tenacity if you're using a Melta. I don't like to use them very much, so this has a lot of really good use, though, with the Melta. Next up is the Grim Determination. When grapple launcher is in cooldown, weapon damage is increased by 10%. Like I said, we're marching this down as we unlock it. We're level 16. This now gives our grapple launcher the ability to help give us more damage when it's on cooldown, which is very common. I think the grapple launcher is on cooldown more often than it is on off cooldown. For our signature, taking lethal damage restores all armor instead of incapacitating you. Cooldown is 180 seconds. So I'm actually going to switch to this one because this is a cheat death. Every 3 minutes I get to cheat death. Rather than dying, I get full armor back. That is huge. It's massive. That gives me tons of capabilities to get out of bad situations. Now, I am removing a little bit of the synergy here between these two, but it still exists. I can still take advantage of it. Do it as you see fit. You could even jump down to this one if you're using the Melta, like I said, but this is a really good perk that you should definitely take advantage of. All right, for our final 8 perks here, we have Upper Hand. After a perfectly timed dodge or parry, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back for 5 seconds. Both of these are pretty good. It depends on how you're playing. Are you focusing more on melee? Go with this. But I like that every time I dodge or parry, which I just have an abundance of, I'm not going to be able to get knocked down or just kind of lose control of my character. I like the survivability this affords me, and I was able to solo decapitation and kill Mama Tyrant with upper hand. I think it really helped me out a lot in the situations where I would have otherwise lost control of the character and got hit with really bad follow-up attacks. So upper hand works for me. Next up here is Conviction. I don't really care because I want that perfect parry window, but the moment your armor is fully depleted, you take 15% less health damage. So you can kind of see these two kind of working in conjunction in some way, shape, or form, but I don't really like that as much. So I'm going to stick with the perfect parry window. Honed reactions. When your health is less than 50%, your perfect dodge window is doubled. This leads into this. After a perfectly timed dodge or parry, you do not lose control. So I have a 50% increased perfect parry window. And if I'm below 50% health, I have a 50% increase to my perfect dodge window. Wait, does that make sense? Yeah, below 50% health, I have an increase in my perfect dodge window. It's double, that's what I meant to say. So I like honed reactions a lot. It just makes it so I can dodge and parry like a monster. Inner Fire, all squad members can restore ability charge by 15% by performing finishers. Yep, it's going to be the one that I choose. It's way better. Now, collateral damage. Diving Kick additionally deals a small amount of damage to enemies on the way to the grapnel launcher's target. I don't like this because it's situationally depending upon me actually launching through units, and if I get interrupted by a Majoris, I just kick the Majoris instead. It just basically means it will do damage to my Norris en route to whatever you're trying to grapnel launch, and usually, I'd say 90% of the time I'm trying to do it on Majoris anyway. So it's cool. I'd rather just have the AoE on impact so I can actually survive doing a diving kick. Tip of the spear here. I'm going to move over down to this. Enemies hit by diving attack take 15% more range damage for 10 seconds. I have over 100 hours in this game. I've played tons of Vanguard now. I just opened up saying that I like this perk more than this perk. Because my brain is not a good one, I forgot to read that performing a finisher with the grapnel launcher it needs a finisher to queue off. I like this one overall now because enemies hit by diving kick take 15% more range damage for 10 seconds. So I apologize there. I made a little mistake, but Tip of the Spear also helps out your entire team, and that's what's important about this one. I was looking at this through the scope of anytime I do the grapnel launch, then I can unload with my Occulus bullet pattern rifle, with my Melta rifle, even my bullet pistol. The Instigator is going to be hard to unload on self, right? And I actually get a lot of really immediate return on it, but I don't use the Melta as much, and the Oculus I don't really like very much. I like the Instigator the most. But again, seeing that helps out the entire team, it's good for bosses, it's good overall, and I don't have to queue it off of a finisher. I think this is actually the superior route to go between these two. But again, I could see this being very useful as well if you're using a Melta. Next up here is combat readiness. Grapnel launcher recharges 20% faster. Like I said, we're just going to march this one down into this. It is a very good ability to keep our grapnel launcher up at all times. Lastly, we have adrenaline rush. Melee kills of Majoris level or higher enemies restore health by 10%. Now this doesn't need to be an execute, but of course, an execute also affords you iframes, so it might as well be an execute. You could just simply melee something to death that's a Majoris level or higher and still get the benefit here. But this allows you, this is the biggest perk in the whole tree because it gives you the capability as a Vanguard to deal with a bad situation and recover from it. In a lot of the gameplay you'll see, I might even show some of it, of me getting murked. I completely miss a parry. I get hit 1, 2, 3 by a bunch of warriors and a bunch of gaunts. It brings me down to 5% health. And then I kill that whole wave, spend the time executing all the warriors back up, and I'm soloing, I'm not playing with anyone. And I get my health back up to like 60, 70%. You look at a room filled with 6 or 7 warriors, that's 60 or 70% health if you can methodically push your way through it and get the melee kills or executes off of them. It is such a good perk, and it's a perk that I think I wish I had. It's a perk I wish I had on Assault. In fact, Vanguard feels, and I'll say this later, Vanguard feels like Assault should feel in my opinion. But those are all of our perks. Let's go to some weapons. Next up, we're going to talk about our weapons, and we're going to go through the secondaries first with the Bolt pistol, obviously we don't have a choice of any other secondary. And starting off over here at the standard issue, we'll go all the way up here. I like the increased accuracy in our mastercrafted level. Then we'll jump into artificer. You can go with the increased accuracy, but at this point we're starting to get 4 more bullets. So I'm going to start going with ammo all the way into relic, where we just go with the ammo. It's just the better bet with this weapon. And the nice thing too is, since the bolt pistol is usable on all classes, if you're jumping into the Vanguard as a 2nd or 3rd or 4th class to max out, the benefit here is you probably have the bolt pistol maxed out. So you're going to have a really nice damage weapon on board immediately, which is good. For our perk tree, we're going to go through the top here to get max spread decrease, and then max spread decrease after a perfectly timed dodge, which we can do very easily. Gun strike, the equipped weapon instantly reloads it. We just use that to get to this. Max spread decrease. Headshot damage, because remember, gun strikes are headshots. Max or magazine size increase by 15%. More after killing a majority level or higher enemy with a melee weapon, that's a big part of our perks. Headshots deal 50% more damage, and gun strikes are headshots, and headshots deal 10% more. So across all of our headshot perks, we're going to be doing 70% more damage after a perfectly timed dodge. It's quite good for our bolt pistol. It's the way I like to take this bad boy. Moving into our melee weapons, we have the combat knife and the chainsword. We're going to go through the combat knife first. My preference is the chainsword. I just really like it because I've used it on so many classes now. But the combat knife is amazing. It's just not very forgiving. The big difference between the two is the combat knife is focused on single target damage, where your chainsword is that middle ground, focusing more towards wave clear. So let's go through our options here. Remember, you have at level 2 the ability to have a 50% parry window. So using the balanced weapon all the way through the chain here is actually recommended more than it is anything else. Take a look at the fencing one. It's terrible. It's only got 2 strength. No, thank you. Jumping here to into the fencing one, it's our only option because I'm not going with a block weapon. I want that perfect parry window, so we're going to go with the fencing. But into relic, the Blood of Vosus is probably the better one. Good strength, good speed, and good balance. You can go with the fencing one if you want, but you lose speed. And why speed is important is speed is your capability to move through your attack patterns, your combo chains, and everything. You don't parry faster because you have more speed. You push through your attacks faster so you can actually dodge faster and parry faster because you're at the end of an animation. Otherwise, you're somewhat relatively animation locked in your attack pattern. Having that 50% increased parry window means that a balanced weapon is still going to be just fine. And we have all that speed increase. We get 1 more power for the fencing one, but Blood of Vosus is definitely the way to go. For our perk tree here, we're going to stick at the bottom. Personally, I don't like this perk when you have full armor. You deal melee damage increase because I very much don't have full armor all the time. I'm kind of bouncing all the time on and off of it. And I don't like right and left skull crusher area effect radius increase. I don't really care for those. So the bottom is melee damage increase, followed by each consecutive heavy attack increases heavy attack damage. We don't really care about this one. I don't find I'm spamming heavy attacks with this, but I want more melee and more melee. So we're doing 15% more melee damage. Into our shoulder bash, it's just way better than Shadow Stab, and Shadow Stab is reportedly very bugged right now, but this gives you the ability to give you a little bit more mobility, and it knocks things back, opening up gun strikes. Get both the Tyrannid and Chaos damage perks, and then we're going to finalize this with Tide of Battle for the Power Wave forward distance. What Power Wave forward distance is, when you go through the attack chain to do the very final one, where it's 2 lights and a heavy or 3 lights and a heavy, whichever one does basically the swing, where you do your whirlwind slash, where you do an attack, your character pauses, jumps through the air and spins, and then slashes down. That whirl around them is your power wave. So this increases it from a 4 to an 8, so it does more area of effect displacement, giving you some more breathing room. The other option here is Reeling Blow. Enemies hit by Whirlwind Slash deal 30% less damage for 4 seconds. I just don't like it very much. I find that the bigger area of effect is a bit more beneficial. Jumping over to the Chainsword, my preferred weapon. Again, this comes down to a personal preference. I know a lot of people like the combat knife over the chainsword. The chainsword, it's just a little bit better at wave clear, as you can see. Just to kind of click between these two, you can see that it focuses kind of a little bit more towards wave clear. But I just overall, I like the flow of the animations. I feel like it's way better to parry with this bad boy. It's the way I like to play the game, so it's my personal preference. Don't be afraid to use the combat knife. So going forward from here, Mastercrafted, we're going to stick with balance because we're never going to use a block weapon. And into the Artificer tier, we've got balance, and then we've got the block. So you can see it's whatever you're personally comfortable with between these two. Losing speed and gaining 2 hit is pretty substantial, but that's 2 speed. It's a pretty high amount of speed. So just be very confident if you go with the fencing one. It can be very punishing, but you've got 50% increased parry window. Might as well have advantage with the speed. Personal opinion here. Going into the relic though, I actually hate the balance Chainsword. 15 strength is awesome, but that speed of +1, we don't have any way to increase that speed. And remember what I've said about speed is really not the way to go for me personally. I think I said block here. I don't like the fencing. I take the balance, not the block. Whoops. In relic tier, I go fencing. We lose 5 strength for sure, but I get a reliable amount of speed that I can actually push through my animations and not get myself animation locked and then screwed over. I soloed Decapitation on Ruthless, went through all Mama Tyrant and everything using this version of the Chainsword because it feels the best for me. It's the one I've used on Assault, it's the one I've used on Bulwark, it's the one I use on Tactical, and I feel I can really click with the animation style. So personal preference here, but I like the Aquilon Dedication. Now for our perk tree, I go with the slams, the boot slammy slams. So what I'm going to do here is Armored Strength. I hate this perk, but I don't have a choice. Enemies hit by Stomp deal 30% less damage for 4 seconds, and melee damage increased here for a total of 10%. Then Stomp area of effect is increased by 50%, and melee damage is increased by 10% for both Chaos and Tyranids. While performing a light combo, you take 50% less range, which is just a means to get me over to here. After performing a Stomp, hold the attack button to perform an additional Stomp attack. I really like this. I get a lot of use out of it. A lot of people don't find themselves going all the way to this part in the chain, but I do it quite often. If I don't open up with a light into a heavy, I'll chain all the way up to the Stomp. And now things hit with the Stomp. It's an increased radius of 50%, and they deal 30% less damage to me. So I feel I can really get this off reliably versus a lot of other weapons that their benefit in the chain is just way too far away. You can go for this too if you want that Majoris level increase in damage that you can stack with your perk for 20% additional. You would just have to lose like probably this one right here. That's probably the one I would sacrifice in lieu of this. But that is our Chainsword. Let's now go into some ranged weapons. Starting us off, we're going to go through my favorite ranged weapon, the Instigator Bolt Carbine. If you're familiar with Destiny, this is a pulse carbine. It is a 3-round burst. And I think this is the best of the weapons, and it's a personal preference. I know the Melta rifle is stupid good, but I just don't like using Melta rifles. I don't like that play style. I like being more medium to long range when I need to, and then just jumping up in the face of things and getting in and out. I just don't prefer the Melta rifle. I understand it's probably the min-max best option. I just don't like being able to not threaten at range. It's just a personal choice. Let's go through the options though. So into Mastercrafted, I always go with the accuracy over the magazine capacity in every weapon in Mastercrafted because it's only 3 more bullets. That's only 1 more press of the trigger. So I'm not down with that. So I go with Mastercrafted here. Into Artificer, you could actually probably stick with the increased accuracy because it goes from 6 to 8. Remember what accuracy does. It is a reduction to the recoil, but it's also a reduction to the cone of fire, right? Your crosshair is not going to spread out as fast as possible. So I find it to be pretty advantageous here. I wouldn't go with the higher firepower. It's not useful. I would rather go for more accurate, higher value shots than more powerful, less accurate shots. Now into Relic tier, you can go with the accuracy strength one again, but you're losing 3 accuracy to now get a lot more mag cap. So I actually do like the mag cap at Relic. Both are just fine though. Go with whichever one you really like. I could understand wanting to go with the 9 accuracy here, but having almost 9 extra bullets in mag cap is really good because when we go to the perk tree, we're going to be able to pull more out of this. So let's take a look at the perk tree because it's god awful. Both bolt carbines, Instigator and Occulus, not the standard edition bolt carbine, have terrible perk trees. So let's go through it. Bottom, mag size increase, of course. After reloading, your ammo reserve is restored by 50% of the number of enemies hit. So if you go the whole entire clip into a bunch of different enemies, then you get ammo reserve added in. So this is a great way to kind of stay topped off and make it so that you're not running out of ammo a lot. It's really cool. Recoil is reduced by 25%. That's basically going to help out your accuracy. Fast reload all weapons faster, and when you do a finisher, the weapon reloads instantly, which is cool. And now it gets into the things that really suck. Armor restores after 25 seconds of not taking damage. Killing an enemy restores armor 0.5 seconds earlier. This is only good on like a Melta rifle. It's not really good on an Instigator bolt carbine where you're really kind of trying to pop off headshots. You have to kill the enemy for this to work. So if I have both of these perks, then I'm killing an enemy restores armor 1 second earlier. I'd have to kill 25 enemies before this actually gets any use. And that's just not going to happen in Ruthless difficulty. Melta, again, it makes total sense, just not for this weapon. Over here for Headhunter, headshots deal 10% more damage. We're just taking this to get up to that 10% more damage. And we're going to drop down here. Unfortunately, damage increased by 10% against Terminus. I hate it. Into increased capacity. The max ammo reserve of this weapon is increased by 20%. And that's it. We don't have any more points. I could have not taken these three to get further into this one, which I hate. When your health is below 30%, killing 10 enemies in rapid succession restores health by 5%. I hate that one too, because that's not going to be easy to pull off with this weapon. For each shot penetrates one additional target. I just wish this was earlier in the perk tree, because this is very good. I want this one. And that's where you stop. If I were to go full through one line, I'd get through one of these perks, but these are just not good. So really, the perk tree is really rough, so we're trying to capitalize on ammo reserve, ammo capacity in our magazine, and headshot damage. The rest is just really rough and tumble, to be totally honest with you. So here's our Instigator Bolt Carbine. Let's go into our Occulus. The Occulus Bolt Carbine is our third weapon to choose from. Of course, we have the Melta rifle. I just don't like it. It doesn't really feel very punchy to me. It bursts through ammo way too fast. So let's go through it here. Choose the accuracy version because the 3 more shots, you're just not going to notice them. Into the Artificer, go with the accuracy version because the 6 more shots, you're really not going to notice them that much. I'd really go with the accuracy because the accuracy on this thing is atrocious. Into the Relic tier, go with 10 more shots because you're actually going to take advantage of that. There's another one with more power and less ammo. So that one actually is also very good. I think it's going to depend on how you approach the perk tree because the perk tree for this is also really not good. So it's between these two. You're either going to go with less accuracy and you're either going to go with less accuracy, more ammo, or less ammo and ultimately less accuracy. So it just depends. Like, do you want 2 accuracy or 4 accuracy? Do you want 4 more bullets or not? The Oculus is just really in a weird place right now. I think it really needs a lot of love. And into the perk tree for it, good lord. So we're going to have an additional 4 more points to spend in what I currently have right now. So the top, we're going max spread decrease, perfectly timed dodge, max spread decrease. I'm trying to get that spread down as much as I can. Reload weapon faster. Each shot penetrates more, which is as helpful as it can be. And then we're going to go with, after a finisher, the weapon reloads immediately to get this crappy perk that I hate, into max spread decrease when firing without aiming, which you'll do quite a bit actually with the bolt carbine. You'll do a lot of hip fire. So that brings us up to 1 of our additional points. We've got 3 more. Max size increase in the magazine, you just need it. That is 2 points left. This is damage increase. I like it because it doesn't do that much damage anyway. So now we only have 1 more point. And we're probably going to go when your health drops below 30%, your ammo reserve is restored by a full mag. Versus this one, when your health is below 30%, killing 10 enemies in rapid succession restores health by 5%. I'd rather just go with full mag because it's just, this thing doesn't do enough punchy damage to really push me through to get the benefit here. And the unfortunate thing is damage against Tyranids and against Chaos are at the end of these chains in separate chains. So it really, really sucks for the perk trees in the Oculus Carbine. Let's now go to the last weapon and what is probably the best one. Now again, I don't like the Melta, but I know it is the min-max pick, and I like to focus on the range for the multi-Melta. Every single variant I go range because the increase in ammo isn't substantial enough, and we're going to be pulling a bunch of it from our perks anyway. So With Mastercrafted, we go range because we're doubling our range there. And into Artificer, we're going to go ranged here. It increases the firepower. I mean, yeah, you can go with increased ammo, but the biggest downfall of this weapon is its range. You can actually hit any of the thropes, Neuro or Xenothrope, Zorothrope. God, 20 years in the hobby. 20 years in the hobby. Still terrible. Still terrible at everything I do. But the thropes, I hate them. You can actually hit them with the increased range on the max tier with a range of 4. You have the other one that has 3 more magazine capacity. That's just 3 more pulls of the trigger, which is still good, but you're going to be able to get plenty of that through perks anyway. So I just like the increased range. Puts us up quite a bit, and we can have a little fun with the range here too. So with this, we're going to go magazine capacity increase over here into max health, of course. When your health drops below 30%, your ammo reserve is restored by a full mag. Very easy to tap into this one. Over here too, we have damage increase against Terminus. You can drop down here for killing enemy restores your armor. It's quite good, right? And let me just see here. We've got 1, 2, 3. We've got only 5 more perks to choose. And basically, if we go down this line, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Zonethropes, not Xenothropes, by the way. Damage increased by 10. Magazine increased by 15. First shot after the first shot after reload deals 10% more, and after perfectly timed dodge, fire rate increases. Fire rate is a real big one to have on this. It's a really, really, really good one. And then fire rate increases by 10%. We're just going to go all the way through the top. The bottom here is, after a perfectly timed dodge, effective range is increased. That's cool. And effective range is increased by 1. Those are great things, but the fire rate is getting that up is just going to feel so juicy with this. So I actually skip this one and I go all the way through the top route. There is definitely a lot of merit to save to go for the bottom here for reload weapon faster. When your health is below, the equipped weapon instantly reloads. Kill an enemy reloads your killing an enemy restores your armor. So this one actually can work with the Melta rifle to work very well. Then you work with these two in conjunction. It just works very fast. Reload the weapon faster and then get your range increased. The bottom does have its merits. I just prefer the fire rate and the magazine size capacity on the top line of your Melta rifle. So after going over so many things across our perks, our weapons, our range weapons, everything, it kind of comes down to like, how do you truly approach this class? What are some of the core lessons? And the class is very straightforward. It doesn't really beat around a bush, beat off on a bush, beat you with bushes. It has a lot of fun. And a lot of that comes down to knowing that you are, in all honesty, I think you are a better assault than the assault class right now. You have a lot of amazing perks that give really good synergy to each other by using your class ability. We've seen how the grapnel launcher can give you some little bit of wave clear. It can knock things out of, it can knock things over, it can stagger them, but also could possibly execute them to give you some additional benefit and additional charge. However, you're going to stack things up in whatever point you are in the leveling process of your Vanguard. And the Vanguard also has a very interesting role in that it can play a medium to short range character very effectively, almost better, of course, than a lot of other classes that are supposed to excel in it. Yes, Assault has its capabilities and so on and so forth, but Assault doesn't have a 10% health regen on Majoris melee kill. That is massive. Assault has a 50% natural increase to their perfect dodge window. Well, the Vanguard gets a 50% natural increase to their, they have a perk that gives them a 50% increase to their perfect parry. And if they're below 50% health, they also have a 50% increase to their, they have an increase to their perfect dodge window is doubled. So they're a very amazing class at getting up and chopping things in the face. And I want to encourage you that, you only have 2 armor blips, but with the patch 3.0 that just went out, all you simply have to do is parry Minoris to get a whole armor blip back. And that can really put you on a constant value train of executing things, gun striking things, parrying those Minoris charges, just parrying Minoris in general to keep your entire armor bar entirely filled. And if you do mess up, well, if you're at level 25, you've got your perk to just simply bring yourself back in health, or bring 10% health back every time you kill a Majoris. So the class succeeds in ways that most classes don't, and it exceeds in ways that other classes should excel in, and that's something that what you're seeing in all this footage is solo footage. I'm not playing with anyone else, so it's just bots. And that's the only one of these class videos that I've done where I'm just soloing the content. And that'll probably be the case with the sniper too, because the sniper has a real broken ability to do so. But the Vanguard is very mobile. They can get around the battlefield quickly. Their grapnel launcher is a whole other beast we're about to talk about in a second here. But through all this mobility and through these parry windows and through these perfect dodge windows and through the combat knife, if you're using that, or even just a chainsword, you just have a lot of really good mobility built into just so many things, so much good speed that it enables you to get in bad situations and then get out of them if you really mess up, or get in bad situations and hold your own. That's the most impressive thing about the Vanguard. It is surprisingly tanky for a class that should probably not be as tanky. And further on to the grapnel launcher, the grapnel launcher is something that you can initiate fights with. Sure, absolutely. Go ahead and do it if you really want. But I don't think the grapnel launcher should be used that way. I think the grapnel launcher is something that pulls you through portions of fights to get to a critical moment or give yourself some breathing room. Let's take a situation where maybe you're surrounded by a bunch of gaunts and you see a warrior or another gaunt out in the distance. Go ahead and use the grapnel launcher to pull out of it. Or maybe you see a bunch of warriors stacked up on each other. Use the grapple launcher to initiate in the middle of a fight, because then you're going to pull yourself out of what might have been a bad situation, hit into those warriors, and if you're using my perk tree, you're going to blow those warriors up as far as your little mini explosion, and that gives you a lot of breathing room to immediately go on the offensive. You'll start doing a lot of slashing damage and really kind of opening up and hopefully getting an execute very early in that jump. So you'll see too some content where it's me just jumping around with the grapnel launcher. Use it in the sense that you can almost use it if you're playing like Batman Arkham Knight, right? Where you use the mobility of your it's not a batarang, your bat, fucking Zelda Link, the thing that makes me go places, and I'm Batman. You know what I'm trying to talk about, but I can't use my words because clearly I'm not good at that. But use the grapple launcher in that scope. Use it to pull you out of a situation, then pull you right to where you want to be, or to use it to go shut down a call-in. Don't think of it purely as an aggressive tool. Don't think of it the way that you should for the jump pack jump for the assault, right? The ground pound is a purely offensive tool. Yes, sure, you can dodge with the charges, absolutely, and if you're 25, you probably should, but when it comes to the grapnel launcher, use it to really act as a utility to the class that already excels at medium range with its instigator and really excels at close combat with both of its melee weapons and the Melta. So use this to put yourself in the best situations rather than simply using it to start a fight. I think if you follow some of those core tenets, you'll really find that the class will unlock for you in a different way. And Vanguard is truly a class that I feel is good from level 1 and just gets incredible at level 25. It's one that is great the entire time around, but you might just be using it maybe too aggressive, or maybe you're using it too passive. You're not a sniper. You can get up close and personal and really do some damage, but you're also not a bulwark, so you can't just take infinite hits. You have to be crafty. You have to dodge. You have to parry. That's where you get so many perks that give you advantages towards those things. So hopefully this helps you out in cracking open the Vanguard. It is a class that, when I was first jumping into the game, I played heavy and I didn't really like it, so I tried the Vanguard. And I loved it. And I was playing with my friend Indie Pride, Milk and Cookies Total War. He played the Bulwark, and he was like, dude, Bulwark just does not feel tanky. And I was like, well, hey, why don't you try Vanguard? Because I feel insanely tanky as Vanguard, and I'm level 2. And he leveled Vanguard to 25 first because he liked it that much. It's a class that I think anyone who's brand new to the game, it's the best class if you're brand new, because it teaches you a lot of different things. It can teach you some bad habits, having all these increased parry windows and all these increased dodge windows, but at the same time, it can teach you the importance of those windows so that you don't skimp out on them on any other class. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below if there's other things that you would do for Vanguard. Maybe you approach the talents differently. Maybe you say, hey, you know what? I like what you did with the chainsword, but I do this. You know what? Screw the chainsword. This is what I do with the combat knife. Whatever it is, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.